I'm in West Orange, New Jersey today. This is the Edison Laboratory, Thomas Edison's laboratory, built late 1800s. So he had a laboratory in Menlo Park, which is pretty famous. That one's gone. I think most of anything from that was brought to Henry Ford's museum in Michigan. But this one is still here. He had moved to West Orange, and this was a sprawling campus of laboratories and experimental buildings. The Black Maria is here, the first motion picture studio, basically. So I'm going to take you around and show you this place, show you what it looks like, and just read you some of the plaques. There's so much information here. It's fascinating. It's a whole workshop in there, a whole laboratory, tons of machines and equipment. There's a music room, photograph stuff, dark room, a beautiful 3-story library in there. You got to check this out. There's some of that original wiring, looks like. Wow. So this is the inside. This is the foyer, or whatever you want to call it, the main lobby, the entranceway to the laboratory. Old time clock. So this was the stock room. Oh yeah, look at these. Here's the nickel iron alkaline storage batteries. Wow. Edison filled this room from floor to ceiling with supplies that his experimenters or muckers might need. Everything from nuts and bolts to exotic materials like elephant hide or rhinoceros horn. At a time before the invention of the sound you're hearing probably is it's people walking above. I mean, this is an old building. At a time before the invention of synthetics, the experimenters used only natural materials in their work. Edison stocked everything imaginable so that experiments would never be delayed while waiting for a delivery of, say, shark's teeth or Spanish licorice. During the blizzard of 1888, trapped experimenters Reginald Fessenden and Jonas Aylesworth survived for 3 days by eating some of the more appetizing supplies. That gear is amazing. I think this is elephant skin. You can't really see what it says, but I think it says elephant skin. Or elephant hide, we'll say. I wonder if there was a cover over this, or if this was just an open switch. Look, Square D. Still around today. So this is really in the thick of it now, of the laboratory here. The sound of whirring leather belts and the ring of metal on metal once filled this shop. A steam engine and the adjacent Building 6 powerhouse spun the 2 belt-driven line shafts mounted overhead on ceiling brackets near the outer walls. Other leather belts ran from line shafts to the machine tools on the floor, where the machinist could engage or disengage them to start and stop the machines. This steam engine was replaced by 2 large electric motors in 1910. I would love to have a shop like this. I mean, you could make anything. Obviously, you would need the knowledge of it too, but... So this was the 12,000-pound crane hoist here, so they could move around big pieces of whatever they were working on or the tools themselves. They could move it all the way up and down this shop. And this is a 12-foot long planer here, so they could pretty much, you know, they could work with whatever metal, whatever material they had or they needed to work with. The lights are still on. That fan back there kind of reminds me of when I was on the Queen Mary in California. The fan that was mounted to the hotel room wall. This is the elevator for the use of Mr. Edison only. Everybody else, you got to use the stairs. And honestly, by the looks of it, I'd probably rather use the stairs anyway. It's looks pretty treacherous. Look at that. Skilled machinists worked in this shop using these large machine tools to make and repair machine parts. Sometimes they made parts for inventions and lab experiments, but other times they made machines for Edison's nearby factories, which turned the new inventions into manufactured products for sale. Wow, look at this, a power hacksaw. These saws were developed to carry out the difficult and time-consuming work of cutting metal by hand. Look at that, just hook it to the belt, turn it on, and it just sits there and cuts. Oh, so these were the electric motors that replaced the steam. I see. So they were much quieter, they could just be in here. By the way, a couple people asked me about my tooth in the comments in the last video, and I forgot to mention it in that video that yes, I fixed my front tooth. It's fixed now, so I don't look like Lord Christmas anymore. It took a couple days to get an appointment, but I got it done. Wow. And here it is. Edison's 3-story library here. More than half of Edison's over 1,000 patents were developed in this laboratory in West Orange. And since Edison used this library as his office, then it's likely that many of those inventions and ideas were thought up or researched or designed in this very room. Edison filled the shelves with thousands of books and journals from around the world on scientific and technical topics, so he and his staff could research related patents and learn about the latest scientific theories. And there's a bed in here, but his house was only a few minutes up the road, but he spent most of his time here, and actually he viewed sleep as a waste of his time. So I assume that short cat naps were the norm here more than anything. Going up to the second level. I believe there's 3 levels. This was the drafting room. Look at those books. Huge. Wow, look at this. This is cleverly named Room 12. Edison preferred this cluttered but plain experimental room over his more ornate library office. In 1910, biography described how Edison used this personal lab. Quote, "The door is always open, and often he can be seen seated at a plain table in the center of the room, deeply intent on some of the number of problems in which he is interested." I'm going to be posting a lot of these pictures on Instagram, so definitely, if you are not following me there, go over there and find me, and if you are, expect these pictures to come out very soon. I will be posting these. Now that's funny. This is a historical sign. I'm sure people were like, what? I can't go in there? The Inventor Center. Put on a lab coat and take a picture with Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. And there they are. The two goats. Ooh, it's very telling that Edison has the light bulb in his hand. Interesting. That piece of beautiful furniture and that patina. It's just crazy to imagine the people using this equipment, working on stuff, inventing things, and things that we use every day, or at least it led to that. Look at this table. Wow. This thing is chewed up. Okay, going up to the third floor, and I would say the third floor will be different inventions and things like that are stored, and the music room. Wow. The sounds that echoed within these walls and down the hall were more than just music. They were the wails of the newborn recording industry. Visitors in the 1880s and 1890s often heard strange noises coming from this room, I'm sure, as the staff made experimental recordings on wax cylinders to discover what techniques produced the best sound quality. Recording techniques weren't yet sensitive enough to require a soundproof room, so musicians sometimes made master recordings here. Wow, I mean, you could hear the road, and well, I guess back then you wouldn't. You'd hear the clopping of horses. Photographs of all the different musicians that played here, and sorry to say that I don't recognize any of them.
You were out to record and to reproduce the human voice.
This is 1877.
In our early experiments, phonographs were already...
The recording telegraph, 1877. This machine predates the phonograph. Edison called it the father of the phonograph. Inspired by his work on the telephone and a recording telegraph, Edison thought he could make a device that recorded and reproduced the human voice. Using a hand-crank cylinder wrapped with heavy tinfoil, Edison bellowed the nursery rhyme, "Mary Had a Little Lamb," into his new device. When his own voice crackled back, he heard the beginning of an industry. He wasn't certain what the market of the uses would be, but he did know it was his favorite invention. He called it the phonograph. Edison's staff experimented with these horns in the music room to see what size and shape worked best. In the early days, horns were used for both recording and playback. During recording, the horn literally funneled the sound waves to the recording styles. When playing back a recording, the horn acted as an amplifier, making the sound louder.
I felt sure I could record and reproduce the human voice. In our early experiments, phonographs were arranged in spiral form on a cylinder about the size of the wax phonograph cylinder of the period.
Look at this, it's a violin or a version of it. It's like got a megaphone on it. That's kind of cool. Kintophone sound film system, 1913. The Kintophone attempted to synchronize recorded sound with motion pictures. A projector at the back of the theater was connected by pulleys to a phonograph at the front, with operators communicating by intercom. It proved too complicated for most theaters to operate. It's just so interesting to see the advancement, but it all came from here. It all started with this stuff. It's only natural that we take everything for granted, but this was the photograph department. Look at this huge camera with the bellows. What is that, an 8x10? Most of the photographs that you've seen on your visit today began in these rooms. In the dark room, film was passed through developing chemicals and prints were hung up to dry. Edison used photographs for public relations and product promotion. By the mid-1910s, the lab's office photo department filled 3 rooms here and had expanded to another building. Today, the photographs are a valuable historical record that the National Park Service uses for research and restoration. An old photo light. I wonder if that was probably a flash bulb. There's no sign that says it, but I bet you it would electrify, and those 2 rods would create a huge flash. That's just my idea of it. I don't know for sure. Here's the other side to the dark room. Or this would have been what is this? Oh yeah, that would have been, I guess, the drawing room, but there were tanks in there too. But this looks like it was legit the dark room, probably. That great fire I was talking to you about happened in 1914 here. I think insurance only covered like a third of it or something. So Edison put up $1 million of his own money, and then his good friend Henry Ford gave him, or lent him, $750,000, which I think if you include for inflation today's money, that's worth it's over $20 million for sure. So between the 2 of them, it was quite a bit of money to rebuild. Look at this, 1896 X-rays. Edison's apparatus, called the fluoroscope, consisted of an X-ray emitting glass lamp and a viewing box with a fluorescent screen inside. An object placed between the lamp and the box formed a shadow on the screen. The Wizard of, well, they called him the Wizard of Menlo Park, but he moved out of Menlo Park and moved up here, northern New Jersey. He bought a house in Llewellyn Park, which is just a few minutes away. Beautiful home, just up the road here, and lived there with his second wife.
Ah, so this is the Black Maria. In 1893, the Black Maria became the world's first building constructed as a motion picture studio. This odd-shaped structure was designed to keep sunlight on the stage while Edison's filming pioneers created kinetoscope films. Although most filming took place around noon, the Black Maria could use available sunlight at all hours. During filming, the angled roof was opened using pulleys to allow sunlight in the studio. and the entire building rested on a pivot and wood track. As the sun's angle changed throughout the day, Edison's movie makers periodically stopped filming to push the Black Maria around a few feet to keep the sunlight on its stage. That's pretty genius.
Now, I believe that this one is not the original. The original actually was, believe it or not, it didn't burn. It was discarded, not used, and thrown away. And then this one was built sometime in the 1950s, I think, as a replica. Some of you may have seen kinetoscopes like this. There was something just like this at my dentist when I was a kid, where you'd kind of put your eyes up to it and crank it, and it would play whatever little short videos they had in there. Normally, I guess this would work, but I think they just reopened this for the season, so it's a soft open. You can imagine how hot it probably was in there. And they definitely didn't have any air conditioning, so. Originally, the Black Maria was located over by the water tower. I'm not sure why they have it where it is now, but this whole area changed, I think, a lot after the fire, too, once they rebuilt everything. I believe that was 1914. Massive, massive fire. There's a little information here about the fire. The Great Fire at Edison Works began about 5:30 p.m. on December 9th, 1914. The fire was not extinguished until the next day. 4 city blocks and 13 factory buildings were destroyed. Only one worker died, however, and he had gone back into a burning building. Imagine being Edison and working as hard as you did to create what you did and build what you did, and just standing there watching it burn. I mean, he recovered quite a bit, but to have to go through that. Alright, so that concludes the tour. I didn't show you everything, so if you are in the area, you should definitely come and check it out. There are other small buildings to check out as well. Alright, see you in the next video.